Okay. All right. Well, welcome, Jeff, Erica, Pam. Again, we're pretty informal in the sense that our goal here is to share information and make sure you ask any questions you want. We do have a few slides, of course, just to give you perspective so you can think about whether or not we've answered your question just because we might have preempted it. But certainly sometimes people have specific things they really want to know about. So I'll go ahead and get started. I want to make sure everyone knows that obviously the University of Louisville is a Research One university. This program is fully online. There are 10 classes that you would take, and we'll talk more about those in a minute. But I wanted to make sure you knew when we say fully online, that doesn't mean that you are not in contact with your professors or with each other. We have webinars, they're optional, but I know in my classes I host them and they're opportunities for students to come and talk with each other, with me. I like to think of them more as conversations than lectures, but there's also the opportunity to network with colleagues in terms of other places through group work or group discussions. So online doesn't mean you're invisible by any means. Okay, let me just figure out how to move forward. Okay, there we go. So I think I moved forward effectively. I'm a little rusty at this, so I apologize at the get-go. I'm standing in for someone else, so I hadn't done this little info session for a while. So we're going to handle it as well as I can do, and I certainly hope you guys appreciate that it won't be perfect, but everything in life is about moving forward and making our best shot at it. So we are considered very visible in the universe of HR. We are one of the best online programs as ranked by U.S. News and World Report. We are affiliated with the Society for Human Resource Management, so SHRM. Some of you may be members. We do have a curriculum that's dedicated and has links to the SHRM curriculum. That doesn't mean, of course, that you get your SHRM certificate. You still have to go for that separately, but we certainly are aiming to help you build those skill sets to help with that. We also have an OD network, that's Org Development Network out of Chicago. My friends in Chicago there, Pam. Our professor there, Dr. Deb, she's very connected to that network. It's a great place to meet other consultants and people who do freelance or even have positions in corporations in terms of OD. OD is more my lane, just so we are clear. I'm a org development kind of person, training, development, organizational problems, evaluation, and then we have folks who are more HR leaning, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But you can see that we also are military friendly. I would suspect, and Susan, you can correct me, but I would say 40% of our students probably have military in their background, and some are still active in the military. And they may live in, yes, thank you. They may live in other countries. I have students in Japan, Germany. We've had them live everywhere. So again, it's an online program. We can manage through that. So just to kind of give you the PR perspective, Tommy Fulp was one of our graduates, and he talks to you here in his perspective about what it does for you. It really is designed to help set you up for success in the human resources and org development lane. Many of you may be in that lane already, so it may even complement what you have been doing, maybe extending the thinking some, which we always hope. We believe our students bring a great deal of wealth of information to the table, which makes it fun for us, but we also think we provide that avenue to learn more, to sometimes put names to things and to build more credibility for yourself in terms of either inside your organization or as you decide to move through other types of organizations. So you may be in the market now, maybe you're not even in HR OD now, but want to move into that lane. But I would say a fair share of our students have already in the lane, so to speak. But that doesn't mean we don't have students who sometimes want to go into that field. So from the standpoint of global reach, we mentioned earlier, it's a Research One. We do have students everywhere. You can see all these wonderful states, 37 states internationally, and our faculty live in a variety of places as well. Some of our practitioner faculty are out of state. Dr. Bird Poller, who's full-time with us, she's also in Richmond, Virginia. I'm here in Louisville, Kentucky, as are two of our other colleagues you'll meet in just a minute in terms of, we'll tell you about who they are. Another one of our students talked about the classes she enjoyed, the professors, which always warms our heart to see that someone enjoyed our thinking and sharing. But we do believe we're a very supportive community. So I appreciate when students say that. Our goal is your graduate students. We know you have busy lives. That doesn't mean, of course, we don't have a great deal of expectations. We have high expectations, but we also balance that with the understanding that you're employed, have families, events happen, so we work with you. So this is Dr. Sharon Carrick. She's a full-time associate professor here at U of L. She also runs the Digital Transformation Center. She teaches a lot of the capstone courses, which is your last class. She's one of the most networked people I've ever met. She came out of the business world herself. She owned her own company. So she has a wonderful wealth of experience. But let me tell you a little bit about our courses, because I know you want to hear about us, but it's also important to know what you might be getting yourselves into. It is flexible. I think I mentioned that. Our courses are 8 weeks, and I'm going to really tell you they're 7.5, because the sessions end pretty much in midweek, and then the next session starts. So it is a little like drinking from a fire hydrant, but the reality is, years ago when we had a full 15-week courses, like in the traditional old days of academia, students were telling us that they would rather, instead of taking 2 courses over 15 weeks, they'd rather concentrate their thinking around 1 course. We like to think of ourselves as nimble and can adjust to our students' expectations and desires. So we switched our program to be a 7.5 to 8 week sessions. We recommend only 1 course per session, but you can still complete 2 courses in a traditional semester. Summer is not traditional, so we usually recommend 1 course, but that means you can move through 5 courses in a year. Sometimes students will contact me. I will honestly tell you, we can, depending on your bandwidth, variables like number of kids, how demanding your job is, how much travel, it's possible to possibly do more in a semester at no more than 3 in a traditional semester. And even then, we caution against it. We want you to succeed. We want you to learn as much as you can. So we know you're investing in your education, so we want you to get the most out of it. I've personally seen students who are depressed by their grades when they, even though I'm not a big believer in grades, the reality is you are much better off focused on your course and drinking, even though it's a fire hydrant, drinking from 1 course at a time, so to speak. We do, as I mentioned earlier, we are online, but we have occasional or optional webinars. I know in my classes we do, and I think almost every professor does the same thing. We consider ourselves high touch, meaning that we're accessible. Students in most of the classes, if you email us or text us, you'll hear back within 24 or 48 hours. Now, some of our faculty are practitioners, so you might have to give them, 2 full days because they have jobs out in, I hate to say the real world. I used to work in the real world, but in academia, we're in sort of an artificial bubble in terms of our timing. I can work at 10 o'clock at night or midnight. Class projects can often be completed within your workplace. We encourage you to find program projects that are complementary to your work organization. And then a lot of our faculty, a lot of our students are senior leaders for healthcare industries, banking, you name the industry, the military. We probably have had or currently have students in that industry. So Dr. Brad Shuck is listed here. He is one of the most noted scholars in engagement. That's his area of expertise. He is a fabulous scholar and good friend. He is also a compassion. He actually studies compassion. So he lives it, but he studies it as well. So I wanted to make sure I shared with you, he is a full professor here in our program, and we are delighted to have him as part of our faculty. The curriculum you would be set yourselves up for, should you join us, is 10 classes. So that's 30 credit hours. That's how we talk in academia. I'm sure you remember that, those credit hours. We have 6 core courses, meaning they're required, and you have 4 electives to pick from. So I'll talk a little bit more about each of those. This is Dr. Linda Bird-Poller. She is our clinical faculty. She lives in Virginia. She is delightful. She comes out of, her expertise is in human resources and as well as leadership and diversity. She's written book chapters. She also studies organizational trauma, which is fascinating in and of itself. So your 6 core courses would be leadership, which all of you I know are probably expert leaders, but we can all learn about leadership more and understand some of the what I call pitfalls and some opportunities on how to continually improve our leadership. We also require strategic human resources, a course that really sets you up to understand the broader perspective of human resources. The frame of reference to have a seat at the table in organizations. We start you off in a course called Evidence-Based Research. We really need to rethink the name of that course because it sounds boring, but I assure you it's a good foundational course and it is not boring. It will help you ground you in how to think about looking for data and information because as we all know, we are inundated with ways to get information. The question is it good information? We also teach a course called Adult and Organizational Learning, which is, again, geared towards those who are in human resources and OD, because a lot of times we're dealing with training and development of teams and organizations. This helps you understand how to gear that training to adults. My course is organizational analysis, so yay, I'm going to talk about that for a second. That course is designed to help organizations avoid what I call putting a Band-Aid on a problem and it not going away. So we learn about root cause analysis and how to truly gain a perspective of what's the underlying issue that's causing the problem or the opportunity. Is it really a good opportunity or are we just inundated with the shiny object? So organizational analysis does a scoping of how to truly get at the root problem or is the opportunity really there? It's a lot of fun. It's absolutely one of my favorite classes. And then, of course, you have to take the capstone, which is your last class, which is your individual project. That's probably the most indistinct and individual project you'll have. You'll work with a professor and deliver work with a client. It could be your organization. It could be a volunteer organization you want to help. Sometimes my students come to me and I'm their client because I always have research going on. I talked to a student today who may do her capstone with me. So there's a lot of opportunity there to grow where you want to grow. So I've talked a lot and I cannot monitor the chat and do this. Susan, can you look? Does anybody have any questions so far?
Yes, I will jump into the chat. Yes. And no questions thus far.
Okay, keep them coming if you have them. I promise I will look at my chat when I get through, but I can only navigate so many things on this airplane. Okay, obviously that is me. I come out of the corporate world. I spent 30 years in corporate executive inside franchising. So my background is at Yum Brands here locally. I ran the marketing and innovation team for them. So I love research and looking into consumer preferences as well as how to decide whether or not the idea is a good idea. Back to that org analysis. Do we chase this new product or is it the right product for our brand? So I come at it from an organizational perspective rather than a human resource. Talent management's just not my lane. I'm more about organizational problems and then evaluation. But let's talk about your electives. You'll work with an advisor and they'll help you select the 4 electives based on what you want to do and your interest. I talked to one of my students today and she's like, I want to take them all. And I'm like, well, we'd love you to take them all. But the reality is you only need 4 and there's a cost associated with all. I'm going to skip ethics. Oh, I'm not going to skip it. I'm going to tell you it's there. But from the standpoint, and I believe me, as a person who helped develop that course, we all need business ethics. But from the standpoint of a lot of organizations have those types of courses. So I'm probably going to say, try to take courses that are going to push you outside of your comfort zone or what you have access to. So it's not that I don't think it's a good course. It just may not be give you as much new thinking as maybe some of these other courses. So 614 is Program and Organization Evaluation. That's a course I lead. It's really designed to help when we put interventions in there, whether they're training interventions or ways to create brand awareness or ways to do X, Y, or Z, are they achieving their outcomes? So I call it more than the happy sheet. We put together thinking about, well, how am I going to measure this? I'm big on measurement. Talent acquisition and management is, of course, a very HR-oriented course, just like it sounds. So I can tell you that it helps you think through the approaches to acquire talent and then, of course, manage it once you have it. The global course is offered periodically. So I'm going to tell you it's an international trip, and we just did one in the spring. It's only offered in like June, and it really depends on level of interest from our students. So we have to have enough students to make an international trip. The students go to a conference. The conference, I think, last year might have been in Ireland, but they've gone to Portugal. But it does require 10 days of bandwidth in terms of your time. 631 is performance management and rewards, which again, a very HR-oriented course designed to help build the talent and making sure the talent is compensated and connected to the organization. Another elective that is very popular and one that, of course, we need to continue to focus on is diversity and inclusion. And approaches, obviously, the last 5 years, we've had lots of different types of programs surface. This course helps you identify what to look for, how to build those types of programs, and what it really means to have a diverse organization. 663 is only taught in the summer. So some of these courses are taught, usually the electives are taught in 1 or 2 semesters. The core courses are taught fall and spring every time. And in the summer, we always offer the capstone and the first course, which is evidence-based research. So org change, methods of facilitation is exactly what it sounds like. It helps you think through how to train others, how to lead meetings, how to conduct strategic planning sessions. It can be whatever type of facilitation you're interested in learning about. So there's some give and take there. It's only offered in the summer. It's a fabulous course. One of my other top favorites is org change and consulting. As an OD person myself, who's been around quite a few blocks occasionally, organizations are constantly changing, but they want to change faster than the people inside want it to change, including myself. So how do you lead change so that others buy into it? Or what happens enough times for us to go, ouch, is that the change is put through, and I'm sure if I asked all of you, you could tell me about a change that was pushed out and then slowly died. And sometimes died quickly because it wasn't thought through in terms of how to bring it to fruition to bring people along. Performance improvement is a course that dovetails nicely in terms of the 662 course I talked about earlier and this evaluation course. We see an issue, we diagnose a problem inside an organization, then we have to develop some type of intervention. So it might be customer complaints, it might be employees are not engaged. As we all know, the problems are never ending. And performance improvement allows us to identify what the issue is and then create a solution, or at least to propose a solution to solve it based on evidence, based on what we learned about the needs assessment, what's really going on. And then it taps in at the end, well, how would I know if I succeeded in it lifting engagement of my employees? How will I know if I've changed the customer's metrics in terms of satisfaction? So what are we going to do? How are we going to evaluate it? So it's a nice course that blends several other courses. Instructional design and development is one of our niche courses. By that, I simply mean it's exactly what it says for those of you who are in training and development. Learning how to build training programs, it's going to teach you that. And then special topics, please don't ever put that on your program of study, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. That's going to be when we have a cool idea we want to bring forward. So we're currently talking about some potential special topics, but there's nothing right now. So it will be an ad hoc kind of basis. Okay, we just talked about that. It was in Ireland. So the Global HR Development course isn't annual. We try to do it every year, but I just can never guarantee. Just depends on interest. Since I've been here, though, I will tell you it's been offered every year. And I've been here 10 years. But it's in June. Last year it was in June. It was in Dublin. And our students, I think about 10 of them went to Ireland. Dr. Bird Poller led the group, as you see her lovely picture here. And I know they had a fantastic time. So with all that said, we've given you perspective of the program. It's a robust program. The curriculum is built on foundational knowledge, research, and practitioner experience. So we bring all of that. Each one of our faculty have worked in corporate America at some point or nonprofits. Some of our practitioner faculty still do work in the world of outside of academia. But to come into our program, which we're going to talk about, what do you need? So our minimum undergraduate GPA is 2.5. Now we know some people may be coming back after a few years out, and maybe it wasn't 2.5 because when they were in college, life happened. In that case, I would say you may get accepted, because we don't like to look at things holding it, penalizing people, but you just may be conditional until you get your first set of grades. So the first time you get a course and you get an A or a B, then the conditional is gone. So, but we want to make sure we are touching base with you and making sure you realize that we want to let you in. We want you to be part of our party, but we just want to make sure you're taken care of. Letters of recommendation, we ask for 2. We ask you to write a resume and goal statement. We do not require a GRE. and the application is online. So much like every university, we try to make it as painless as we can, but we still have to require a few things to give us confidence that this is the right fit for you. This explains our tuition. We again hope you have tuition reimbursement from your organization because we'd love for you to come, and I'd love not to charge you a dime. But of course, the university has to pay bills, so we do have a per credit hour cost, $7.91. For our active duty military, it's $2.50. There is no out of state, so my Chicago friend Pam, you would pay the same as my Kentucky friend Erica. This is the information about the financial aid office. The hours, the phone, and all of this will be sent to you so you don't have to busy write it down. Dr. Ron Sheffield is one of our clinical faculty. He lives in Denver, Colorado. He is also a practitioner. He comes out of he has his PhD, of course, we all do, to teach in the graduate program, but his expertise is around diversity and adult learning. Okay, we also have clubs to allow you to become more connected to the lane you're most interested in, or both lanes. We have the Organization Development Student Club, which is out of the OD World, OD Network, and then we have the SHRM Student Chapter. So you may lean into one or both of those, but it's a great way to network with your other colleagues. They do webinars. I know some of my colleagues from other corporations have been kind enough to guest speak. Dr. Shuck's colleagues. We gather our friends who are in various places and ask them to participate and share their thinking with our students. The application deadline for the spring is December 10th, and our first session starts on January 8th, and our first session ends on February 26th. So like I said, there's like no days in between. You'll go from one to the next, February 27th, which, like I said, is a little bit like a fire hydrant, but most of our courses are built so that you have a week to 10 days to complete your final assignment. So it's not like we gave you 24 hours to complete your assignment. You'll have plenty of time to get through that last assignment. So these are some of our experts. Susan is on the call now. She's been with us for many years. I've known her probably for 12 years myself. She's an expert at understanding careers and helping students navigate what I call the HEI bureaucracy. No offense to HEIs, but higher education institutions, there's sometimes bureaucracy. What a shock. Dr. Sheffield is our program director for HROD. He's a source of information. I am as well, of course. And Sarah Schubel is an expert at making sure our students paperwork is processed, whether it's incoming paperwork or getting ready to graduate paperwork, meaning that we have to make sure all 10 courses were taken. And Sarah's great at connecting students to say, she's so good. She's like, I haven't received your graduation application. So she's actually a good reminder to students who may have been super busy and forgot to apply to graduate. So we try to do everything we can to help you navigate the system up front, during, and after. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that for a second and try to go back to just you, if I can figure this out, and me. And we had a few more people join us. Yay. Hi, Daleen. Good to thank you. I'm just curious, what part of the world do you live in?
I'm at the University of Kentucky.
Okay, great. Well, I had my son graduate from there, so I'm a big blue fan too, although mostly red. So my household kind of goes both ways, but welcome. And Caleb,
so okay. I get ribbed a lot.
Okay, I'm sure. Caleb, where are you in terms of living state? Well, that's okay. Caleb may have had to step away. So I kind of know, I've already think I've spoken to everyone, trying to get a sense of where we have Chicago, Lexington, a couple of Lexingtons. Jeff, remind me, where are you? We may have lost Jeff too. He's on our external, but that's okay. So what I want to do now is take an opportunity. I know I talk a little fast. People have mentioned that, but my goal here was not to bore you so much as give you some perspective of our program. What can I answer? You can put it in the chat room, or you can just raise your hand or just type in. Oh, Pam, go ahead.
Yes. So I know it's fully online, so I'm assuming that means the courses are asynchronous. And you talked about some, I guess, optional webinars, how do those typically fit in? Are they once during a course, twice? Like,
Sure.
how does that work?
Absolutely. So again, when I say optional, they are recorded. So by the way, so anyone who missed because of the timing, we have usually they're in the evenings, Eastern time, or it depends. Dr. Sheffield's out in Denver, but we try to make it, since I'd say a good percentage of our folks are Eastern time. They might be at 7:30 to 8:30 or 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. My courses, for example, that are 7 weeks might have 4 webinars. Somebody else's courses might have 5. Someone else might have 2. The capstone, usually the Dr. Carrick, I know, has once a week office hours. She just goes online from 7 to 10 or 7 to 9 or whatever her hours are. And she's there in case anyone wants to talk because their projects are so individual. They're usually about an hour, probably no more than 75 minutes. They're probably anywhere, like I said, from 2 to 4 times throughout the semester, or throughout the session, I should say. It is asynchronous. We use something called RISE, which is an e-learning, corporate e-learning, meaning that we don't just park out there PowerPoint slides and YouTube videos and PDF readings. We package everything together like corporate e-learning. So you would walk into the module and it would say, welcome to the module. These are your objectives. And then it would take you through each one. You could stop and come back. So my modules might have, I have 7 modules. Within one module, I might have 5 different sections on my topic. And then you would go through. So the modules might take you an hour and a half to go through them, do the readings, watch the videos. I usually do an audio myself. So the asynchronous part is still done in a way that we believe provides you a way to curate the data, curate the information, and go through it logically. The webinars are complementary. I'll have guest speakers from companies I know to talk about how they a needs assessment they did or a program evaluation, and students can ask questions. So usually I have one guest speaker for every course, and then I'll do some what I call conversations. Dr. Bird Pollard calls hers huddles. So she has her huddles, probably, like I said, 4 huddles during the 7 weeks. That was a long way to answer it. I hope that helped.
Yes, thank you so much.
Other questions? And by the way, I may take that huddle idea. I like the term huddle. It sounds better than, I call mine convos, but same kind of thing. No one's asked yet how much work it is. Is anybody curious how many hours a week they're going to spend on this?
I was getting ready to ask that, actually, Dr. Cumberland, but in a different way. My question was, if you wanted to take, it's my understanding that you are scheduled, and you may have answered this, I had to step away briefly, to take one class per 7.5, 8-week session. If you ever wanted to double up, would you be allowed to do that?
We discourage it highly, meaning you have to have a conversation with us. So, and the reason is people are always more ambitious than what they anticipate. It is a graduate program. So I never kid people. The expectations are graduate level work. So you're in groups, you'll have expectations to do group work in some classes. Mine depends on my class. Sometimes it's an individual project. It's a heavy lift. Now, at times, we know sometimes people say their summer is more free, they're teachers or they're whatever, and they have a little more bandwidth. If I can understand the reasoning, then we can talk about it and we can look at the pros and cons. I can also help advise what courses might blend better. Obviously, some courses are slightly heavier lift. No faculty wants to mention that. But the reality is, let me take an example. While leadership is a decent amount of lift, it's not like we don't understand principles of leadership. Whereas strategic human resources may be something that somebody's coming in who doesn't have any HR experience, they might find Porter's force, whatever, some kind of weird thing, never even heard of it. So I always joke, ethics is a course that, sometimes can be laddered with something else. Again, I don't advise it because most graduate students are eager beavers to get A's. And I personally have seen students, when I see a student not getting an A in my class, I will tell you that the first thing I do, I know to go look and see what their transcript looks like. And I can guarantee you 80% of them have doubled up. That tells me immediately they're struggling with the weight of the 2 courses. It's not that they're not competent and capable human beings able to get A's, but I just want them to be aware it could impact your GPA. And again, I think it's about the learning, not the GPA, but still we can only soak up so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And again, I certainly have had students and some of your colleagues and students in the family say, well, I took 2 courses and I did it great. Wonderful. But you may not have kids, you may not have dogs, you may not have a job that requires travel. So everybody's variables are going to be a little different. So I've beaten that horse to death. So why don't we move to the next question?
If you could put a snapshot on how many hours per week
Sure.
is really going to be required.
Sure, absolutely. I know that's it. And of course, every course will be a little different, but I can speak for my courses. Usually courses start off, I always tell my students, get ready for the onslaught at first, because it's going to zoom quick out the gate, right? Because you got the first week, you've got to get in there. Now, other faculty may have a more tempered approach, but with my courses, I know I want people in there. I've got to make sure we're all on the same page. Why? Because I don't have a lot of fluff time. If you miss the first 2 weeks and you get behind, it's really hard to catch up. So my theory in life is before the course opens, every course should be open 2 weeks early. The syllabus should be up. You should be able to see your expectations, and you can start emailing me right away. Oh, here's the project I'm thinking about. Would this fit? I'll tell you right back. So 2 weeks before the course opens, I'm able to give some students some reassurance that they're on the right bandwidth. They can read the readings, go into the e-learning module. And I have students, candidly, they're graduate students. They're in there early. I'm like, ooh, look at that. So I can, obviously in Blackboard. So going back to your question about number of hours per week, as I mentioned, the e-learning modules could take you anywhere from 90 minutes to 2.5 hours. That's going to contain videos. It's going to contain YouTube links. It's going to contain readings. Then you'll have your textbooks sometimes. We try really hard not to have you pay a lot for textbooks. So if we do have to have a textbook, one of mine's free, or the other one's extremely low expense. I won't change it because I love the book and it's really inexpensive. So we try really hard to keep our textbooks down, but there might be some textbook readings, might take another 45 minutes. So in a typical week, and then there's an assignment. It's kind of like me estimating like 4 to 6 hours probably. And then when papers are due, that might ratchet up to a higher number. So, on the weekend, you might be working on a paper, or you might be working on a case study where you have to provide some comments and perspective. Most of our courses have what we call affectionately the HAT. It's called a Hallmark Assessment Task, and we call them HATs for short. That's the big project, and they're often scaffolded. So that means that in my course, when you're going to do an org analysis or program evaluation, you'll start with part 1, and I'll give you feedback. And then you can fix part 1. It's worth a lower amount of hours. Then you go to part 2, and sometimes it might have 3 parts. And you've fixed part 1. Now you're into part 2. I give you some more feedback. And then when you finally submit it, at the end, it's not like, oh my God, I had this heavy lift and I didn't even know how to take the boulder up the hill. It's a scaffolded project so that you've carried the boulder up 1/3 to 40% of the way. You've gotten feedback and gotten an A on the next version. You're up again. So it's just like climbing a mountain. You have stages where you stop and regroup, change things, move on. So we don't just put you out there with one big assignment. So that big assignment is going to take some time, but at the end of the day, you've done it in increments. So while I'm trying to give a percent, it's a little difficult. I'm going to kind of throw out, thumb. How fast are readers, how distracted you personally get, probably 4 to 8 hours, and then it might be 10 in a heavy week where you're doing an hour or 2 at night, just making sure you're up on your readings, doing your discussion board. And then we could have students in the program tell you, oh, she's full of it. I do mine in 3 hours. I don't know. So when you get in and you talk to your colleagues, you can ask them how many hours. But I can look at Blackboard and kind of see that my e-learning modules are probably taking people on average about 2 hours, to go through the full module of 7 different elements, 6 to 7 elements. So that's a big rough guess.
Okay. The other question I have is, what is the average cost of textbooks?
It's a great question. I think we should probably do that so that we have that next time. I can tell you that For one of my, so if I do the average across, all of our courses, it's going to be a little hard to guess, but I'm going to throw this out. I think it's based on the number of courses I've taught, knowing the capstone doesn't even have a book, that one of my classes doesn't have a book. It's a free book, so you just download it. My other class is probably like used $15 to $20. So my guess, because I don't know all the classes, is probably going to be about $50. If I average the high one, maybe there's an $80 in there, and 50 may be high. So I would love to tell you I have an exact number. That's me doing this again. It might be $40 to $50. Some courses it'll be zero. So another course might be 75 or 80. I just don't know all of it, but I'm going to definitely follow up on that one because I think that's a great question and we could probably get the answer.
Okay, thank you.
I love a good question that lets me go. We keep trying to reduce the number of books. By that, I mean, when we do these e-learning modules, we can post PDFs from different, particularly like a class like I'll take leadership. There's a lot of readings on leadership. There's a lot written on leadership. We can grab it free and try to bring it to the students. So I say the olden days, when we didn't have that access, we probably had 2, sometimes 3 books per course. It was probably 3 times that $50. It was probably $150.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
And maybe silly, but I was always taught there's no such thing as a silly question.
My motto.
Do you all give any credit for real life experience, i.e., like I've completed the McKinsey Academy leadership program. Do you all give any credit for anything like that?
First off, congrats on completing that. I know McKinsey's a good company. Here's how things like that could count, but no, the short answer is no, but let me tell you the long answer. So if students have gone to other universities and taken a leadership course or a course in organizational behavior, that might be a good one because it doesn't even sound like one of our courses, but it really is. Org behavior is very similar to leadership in terms of what it teaches. So we would ask you if you had a accredited university and you had a transcript, we just get that, we get your syllabus, and then we send it to the lead faculty on leadership. And we say, would you look at this and make sure there's a good amount of similarities? So I know I certainly look at syllabi from other universities and go, close enough, we got you. So we can transfer in 6 credit hours. That's the top of the line. It could be 3 if you had 1 course, up to 2 courses, 6 credit hours. So some of our students bring, particularly the military where they've gone to other schools, they'll bring 1 or 2 courses to the table. And normally if it's a course that's not in chemistry or it's been in something, we can usually get those courses through and they'll show up and you wouldn't have to take leadership. So yes to a accredited university where it's a transcript and we have accreditation. But no to consulting type certificates. Not that we don't think they're wonderful, but at the end of the day, the university has these companies that, what do they call it? Accreditation policies. So those accreditation companies require us to follow these rules, and those are the rules.
Thank you.
Of course. I'm trying to think if that raises any other questions about, okay, another thing I'll just share while you're thinking of questions is if students run into a problem, life happens, right? And they get behind. My coaching is always let your faculty member know as soon as possible. So if you know something's happened, then contact your faculty member. They'll do everything they can to help you figure out a solution. There's not a one size fits all, but it could be you take an incomplete and finish it in a couple weeks later. Something happened and you couldn't get to the last project or whatever it was, on the docket. So faculty will work with you. They can do an incomplete and give you a little extra time. We know where the world happens. We don't encourage things like that. We prefer you to finish so that when you start the next class, you're not trying to carry the old one with you. But at the end of the day, if you are in our program, our faculty are here to help you navigate situations. So we can't navigate unless, and of course, most of us, we haven't seen you in Blackboard, it's been a week, I'll send out emails. Hey, making sure everything's okay. Just want to make sure you're all right. We hate to be nosy, but we want to make sure we're letting you know we're keeping sort of tabs on you so that you're not just lost in the field of students. We are very much cognizant of how life can happen, and it's so easy to forget that, oh my God, I had something due. And we don't want to browbeat you, but we also want to make sure we send a signal. Hello, is everything okay? Other questions? Because I'm thinking, Susan, did I forget something that you could think of that comes up regularly?
Actually, no. I'll just interject that there's lots of scholarships to take advantage of through the SHRM Foundation. So for those of you that think, hey, I might want to do this a little financially savvy, please apply for all the scholarships that you can. So I just want to encourage you to do that at SHRM Foundation.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things, if you do enroll or you get accepted and you're ready, we send you are advised by someone here on our team. So you're given an advisor and you're given a link to our starter kit. Doesn't mean we don't want to have a 30-minute conversation or 45 minutes or an hour. We do, but we want to give you what we call a program of study. So the first thing we ask you to do is kind of look when the courses are offered, when you plan to start, and we navigate what's called a map or a program of study so that you kind of say, I want to graduate in December of 2025, whatever the time is, right? So you just have to back into it. And we look at it so that we asked you to, of course, look at the starter kit. So you're not trying to take the capstone in, your second module, and you're not trying to take a course that's not offered. So our job is to try to help you identify when to take things so that you can graduate at that date that you want to graduate. So we have a 30-minute conversation. We also want to know what your interests are, because if we know you're kind of blended and you want HR and OD, we can help you identify electives. If on the other hand, you really like, I don't really like that OD side, I'm really HR, then we can help you as well. The starter kit does identify which courses are which, but sometimes it helps to talk to people. Pam?
So I know it's fully online, but are there ever any opportunities to connect on campus with like students or faculty?
Absolutely, with faculty, since some of us live here locally. So the practitioner faculty can live in different cities, and there might be opportunity to connect with them too. Dr. Rod Merkley lives in Nashville, and I know he would welcome. He's been teaching us. He's like one of my favorite faculty. I let him teach my courses because I love him so much. He's just fantastic, and he's in Nashville. He would definitely meet with you. If you were coming to town, I have certainly met with students when they're in town. So our schedules are usually, as faculty, we tend to be doing research or whatever. And we're also, I just had a call today with a student who was in my class in 662, and she wants to find some projects we can work on. So I always have projects I'm working on for my research, and so we're going to connect. So she's going to graduate next December. I'm going to give her some ideas on projects she might work on. Her choice, of course. These are options. But yes, we'd love to meet with you.
Okay. Thanks.
Now, I would love to tell you students would as well. I can't identify because I don't know whether they're local, but if you are in a group with someone, you may find people who are close by that's in a group and you guys could have coffee. So absolutely there could be, when I put groups together, I try to put people in the same time zone so that, we don't have, if I can, obviously somebody in Japan is going to be a little difficult, but, from that standpoint, we try to group people together who are in proximity.
If we don't think we can get application and finances all in place for this semester, when is the next?
Sure. The summer session, well, actually, no, I take that back. You could start in the middle of and Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we have rolling admissions. So session 2 starts February 8th, I believe. So it's possible you could register. Susan will correct me if I'm wrong about that. But worst case scenario would be May, which would be summer. But Susan, do you want to maybe correct me if I'm wrong?
You're accurate. So we have 2 terms in spring semester. So spring is actually 16 weeks long, 15 weeks long. So term 1, you start January 8th, term 2 start February, I want to say 27th.
Oh, that sounds good.
If you miss the spring semester, basically you want to start in May, and generally classes will start after the Kentucky Derby. So if you're a Kentuckian, you know what that means. So we always start the week after the Derby, and that's our summer session.
And that reminds me of another piece of advice I'll share. So in fall, there are 16 weeks, and session 1 and session 2 butt right up against each other. One ends and the next one starts. So February 26th is the end date for session 1. Session 2 is February 27th. But between the end of spring and the start of summer, there's like a week of maybe it's I think the last day of class is April 22nd. So from April 22nd to probably May 10th-ish. Okay, I'm making that number up, but you got a couple of weeks of no classes. Whoo, breathe again, breathe, right? I mean, as I told you, graduate school is a lift. Then at the end of summer, there's another breathing pause. So classes will end around July 25th. I'm making that up too, but close enough. And we don't start again, or maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's early August. They end somewhere in that late July, early August timeframe, and classes don't start again until like August 24th. Once again, a little bit of hiatus. Breathe, vacation, go to the pool, whatever. And the same thing at the end of November. Classes end around the first part of December, right after Thanksgiving, and they don't start again until January 6th. So that's the biggest window of breathing, right? No courses. So I wanted to mention that because when you think about taking a second course, like you're like going to try to put something on top of each other, the least favorite idea, in my opinion, is when you have no hiatus between 1 and 2. At least in summer, you've got a breathing pause and then another breathing pause. So I hope that helped you think about if you had to navigate due to, I don't know, tuition reimbursement, whatever. So I've given you all the advice I give my advisees. Other questions?
Thanks.
Of course. Well, here's my plan of attack usually is that I'll stay on for a few minutes. I know all of you have busy lives and are probably either going, sounds intriguing and I want to know more. And of course, we're here to answer those questions. Or if you say, I'm just going to think about it a little bit more and you want to pause, we totally understand that. The application, I thought it was the 10th, Susan. Is it the 1st?
Sorry, that's a typo on me. December 10th. Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. I was like, okay. My brain cells are not always that good, but okay, I kind of remembered that. Okay. So what we want you to encourage you to do is see if it's right for you. We really do believe the program builds your capabilities, your skills, and introduces you to a lot of opportunities in terms of growth as both your career and personally, because we all know milestones like graduating and having a master's degree is fulfilling. I went on when I was 49 to get my doctorate. So I waited a long time before I went for the doctorate, but I've been here over 10 years. It took me about 3 years to get my doctorate, but it's a second career. It's been a fabulous journey. This is an excellent place to find a home, and it's a really very clear program that we want you to finish. We want you to start, and then we really want you to finish because it doesn't do us any good to have you start and not finish. We don't get paid on bonuses to bring people in. We don't have bonus structures. We're just designed to help you. So with that said, I will say I'm here. I'll stick around for a few more minutes, but thank you for joining us today and listening.
Are you going to be sending out, what information are you going to be sending out?
Susan, you want to handle that one for me?
Yes, absolutely. This session is being recorded. So within 24 to 48 hours, you will actually be emailed this presentation and I think a quick assessment. Just how did we do? So if you need any additional information after today, if the presentation doesn't provide what you need, just please email myself. I'll put my email in the chat, or you could possibly send email to Dr. Cumberland, and we'll try to answer your questions as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. It's denise.cumberland@louisville.edu. All of us are linked on. You can look at the website, and I would encourage you to go to the website and surf around. A lot of what we shared was on the website, but we like to think of it as more human when we actually speak about it. Oh, Pam, go ahead. I see a hand.
Yes. So if let's say I apply for the spring, but for some reason don't have finances together, can it be deferred to the summer?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We just need you to tell us so that we can then notify the graduate admissions office. And then there's a point where if you wait too long, we have to have you send something in. I don't know all the forms, but for one semester, it wouldn't be a problem. Just notify us.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. And again, thanks for taking the time to hear a little bit about the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, Sarah, I hope everything is okay. Oh, Sarah must have left. Caleb, are you on? Okay. I guess I'm the only one left, so I'm going to sign out.